Hey bass anglers. If I want to head to Lake Murray, South Carolina to fish in an upcoming bass tournament in the springtime, say in March, like the upcoming Major League Fishing event that's going to be held here shortly, and I want to fish that or pre-fish that and get some idea when I've never been there before, how can I use artificial intelligence and some of the new models that are out there to help me prepare for fishing, to give me the best information I can to be as successful as I can on a body of water I've never been to before? Well, I'm telling you, artificial intelligence can certainly help you if you prompt it correctly. And in this video, I'm going to give you 3 key things to think about, 3 key inputs to the artificial intelligence models to come out with a game plan to fish an area in a tournament that you've never been to before. So what I did is I developed a series of inquiries, or prompts they're called, into a machine learning model. And the one I've chosen for this experiment that I did for tournament bass fishing in an area I've never been to is the Grok 3 model from X. And basically they all operate, these text models operate similarly, but it's very key to get a sequence of prompts that really drills into the model to give it the context and the information required to produce a great product for you. And in this case, my end game was to get a 10-hour pre-fishing game plan for Lake Murray in South Carolina. And that's an interesting end game, but if I was going down there to fish in an upcoming tournament, I'd want to know, not knowing anything really about the lake, there's all kinds of research you can do online, and you've seen plenty of videos about how to do that. But I wanted to leverage the power of the machine learning models to go in and find all of the information, historical information, articles, results, tournament wins, magazine published articles, whatever was out there in the internet world from a text standpoint, what's available to me to query and to have some intelligent queries to get results and get some information. So here's what I did. The initial prompt is important, and I'll share all of the prompt information with you. I think since there's a lot of text in it, I'm going to put a link in the description to a blog post I'll put on my website. But I'll share some of the results here as well. But the first thing you want to have is a good initial prompt. So get yourself access to one of the ChatGPT, or in this case I use the Grok 3. It's the X AI text model, and go into the prompt area. And my initial prompt, and with any initial prompt you want to do a couple of things. You want to avoid anything vague or broad, right? You want to provide some clear instructions, and you want to use as much detail as possible to get the dialogue with the AI started. It's a 3-part process to get to that plan that I was talking about. So prompt number 1 is I asked it, what is the best fishing technique and bait choice for me to compete in a tournament on Lake Murray in South Carolina? I said I will be fishing there from March 6th through the 9th, which is that tournament time period. And what does the documented history reveal as the best strategies to consider? So that was my initial prompt. And then I got some pretty amazing information, I thought, and some of you might think it's typical or general, but certainly if you've got experience on Lake Murray, or if you fish in the southern part of the United States. But I'm in the north, so I'm casting a net way out there in a place that I've never been, and wondering how accurate this modeling can be. So anyways, it gave me timing and bass behavior, and I'll share these results with you. It gave me 3 top techniques. It gave me Carolina rig for pre-spawn fishing, nothing earth-shattering there, but it gave me why it works, how to fish, and historical edge. That gave me a little bit of context about local guides and or bass professionals that have been successful using those techniques. So it gave me Carolina rig, and it ultimately further down gave me the lure choices too. And we'll get to that in a minute. But secondly, it gave me spinner baits around cover. Again, why it works, a spinner bait around cover. Why it works, how to fish it, historical edge. It gave me soft plastic baits for spawning fish. So it gave me those 3 key techniques. Carolina rig for pre-spawn, spinner baits around cover because it knows the wind's going to blow in these big lakes, and there's been some historical success with that. And then it gave me the soft plastic bait for spawning fish. And thinking about March and thinking about the weather forecast for the period of time that I was going to be there, it calculated all of that and considered all of that information when making the recommendation. And then it gave me bait choices, and it gave me the Carolina rigged baby brush hog, which is a fantastic spring bait, and I instantly gave it some validity, knowing that, you know, my personal experience up here in Wisconsin is that the baby brush hog is dynamite. It can be, you know, fished in a bunch of ways, but certainly can be fished on a Carolina rig. And we also know from watching some tournaments that people do well in this time of the year on a Carolina rig, dragging that sea rig around. And then it gave me a spinnerbait, a 1/2 ounce white or white and chartreuse spinnerbait as an option. And it gave me some details as to why with the stained water. Certainly on Murray, there's sections of that lake, depending on precipitation that they get, can be stained and not stained. The wind's going to blow on certain areas. So spinnerbait, and it had some history to it. And then lastly, it gave me some Zoom plastic trick worms and finesse worms, and their exact setups for pitching in and around bedding fish. It went into some strategic considerations from history, which I thought was pretty impressive too. Versatility, it talked about. It said versatility rules because of Lake Murray's size and diversity and weather. And it went into some history about what happens at certain times of the day, and talks about the transition that you might need to start on pre-spawn and work your way in. And you might have to work your way through those techniques depending on what happens in a day. So it talked a lot about strategic considerations from history. It talked about being careful around the skittish spawning fish, and it gave you some insights there, and some tournament proven notes and some execution tips that it gave. And then it ultimately gave a final game plan there about kind of what I talked about starting with the Carolina rig and dealing with spinnerbaits if the wind blows, and then working your way in the afternoons inside to those spawning fish. So it was pretty impressive, and I went a step further with it though into step 2, and that's to take that AI input and expand from that initial prompt. And I did that. I said in my secondary prompt, right, I went in and I said, great start. Could you reference any documentation from BASS or Bass Angler Sportsman Society's magazine articles or other relevant information to enhance the recommendation for this time of year on Lake Murray? And then this thing spit out the next piece of information, and it referenced all kinds of different historical context and information and called it Enhanced Techniques with Bass Insights. So it went into Carolina rig, it went into the spinnerbait fishing, it went into the soft plastic fishing with those lures, and it went into some historical references about what people had done there, for whether it was the 2003 Classic won by Jay Yellis or the 2023 Elite Series. It went into information and called it BASS angle or historical context, bass historical context for Lake Murray. And then it gave me that supplementary information for every one of those types, and I'll share that with you as well, that enhanced information. Then I went on to step 3. So now I had a pretty good base. I had some techniques, I had transition, I had some context wrapped around that transition and some details about the lake, and some history from the bass context wrapped into all those techniques. So I had a really good base. Now, the third thing you need to do with these AI things is, once you got the conversation going that deep, is ask it for something specific. And so what I did is like, you need a plan of action. And so my third prompt in this sequence of prompts was, I said, excellent, with the information you've already provided me, could you provide me with a 10-hour practice game plan scenario and map for Saturday, March 1st, launching out from, I think it's pronounced Derer Island on Lake Murray. It's a north centrally located island in the lake with a pretty major boat ramp launch area. And I said, give me a practice day mapped out. So it gave me a game plan, and it gave it to me in 2-hour increments throughout the day. And with each increment of time, it gave me the location, it gave me a couple of waypoints, it gave me a goal, and it gave me why we're here. And I thought that was pretty impressive, right? So totally focused why we're here. These are classic pre-spawn spots, and per Bassmaster recaps and local patterns with easy access from that boat landing, this is a place to go look. The goal was to locate those pre-spawn schools that are staging on deeper transitions. It told me what kind of fish to expect. It told me to spend an hour per point and note the depth and cover, right? I'm trying to get an imprint in my mind on my first pre-fishing day of what's going on in that pre-spawn environment in those first couple of hours. And it gave me some options. That's pretty impressive. Then in the second 2-hour segment of the day, so that was 7 to 9 a.m., and then from 9 to 11 a.m., it gave me the same thing. It gave me some location. It gave me some technique and goal and why we're here information. The technique was the spinnerbait with a slow roll, burn, and kill approach. And it wanted me to work it along brush and stumps, focusing on wind-blown areas if the breeze picks up. And then it told me if I don't get any bites after 20 minutes, I'm supposed to pick up the Carolina rig in those areas. But it was giving me the goal to find fish moving from staging from the pre-spawn to the spawning areas and looking for reaction bites. And it wanted me to, can I catch some good legal fish in certain areas with a reaction bait with those conditions present. And then it was moving me back. Now I'm out a little ways. Now it's moving me back towards the ramp. And it's got me in some protected pockets and some coves, and it's got me looking for spawning areas with my Zoom trick worms and finesse plastic baits that I'm using for spawning. But it called out the Zoom trick worms, so there's some history there with some people winning tournaments there. So the goal was to identify bedding fish, shallow cruisers, and I'm looking for 3 to 6 pound females now guarding nests or staging near spawning sites. And I'm supposed to note the water quality and the locations of the beds in those areas. And it says as the sun warms, these coves kickstart the spawning, and references some Bassmaster insights into some patterns that have developed along those ways. And now from 2 to 4 p.m., it's working towards the end of the day, and it's got me running a shoreline that's got riprap and brush and 3 to 10 feet that's wind exposed. And so now it knows in the afternoon, typically the wind's blowing on this lake, and now I'm going to check those areas. And the goal is to confirm a windy day pattern and to test a backup creek, right? So it's got me in a different creek arm. It's telling me the size fish I'm looking for, and I'm looking for bait fish and fish reacting to a moving bait on those locations. And then from 4 to 5, it's got me refining some hot spots. It's got me returning to the best morning spot, and I'm rotating all 3 of those baits again. And I'm looking for late day bites that often mimic tournament crunch time and giving you a feel for clutch spots. And then it's a sprawling, irregular, starfish-centered lake, and there's a lot there, so you want to kind of have a tournament strategy there too. So it gave me an amazing pre-fishing game plan. It told me to adapt. It told me, if the water's colder, I'm supposed to linger on those deeper points. If it's warmer, over 58 degrees, then I'm supposed to prioritize the coves. If the wind is over 10 miles an hour, then I'm leaning on those shoreline areas, the brush and the reaction bite. And then it gives you a wrap up, and it gave me kind of a wrap up from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. of the whole day, why I was in each area and what I was doing. That's a fantastic start for somebody who knows nothing about Lake Murray in South Carolina. All from all of the text that's out there on the internet, it's able to crawl through and grab that information as long as you gave it a great prompt. So now I've got some baits that I can use. I've got some techniques that I can consider. I've got some strategy that I can employ in a pre-fish day out there and then expand from there. So while map study and all of that has been a great tool, and there's plenty of videos out there, looking at Google Earth Pro, and you're looking for places that you can fish that might be hidden, when water levels change. There's a lot of information out there you get on map study for, those points and secondary points. You can look at all of that stuff in those creek arms and stuff and apply some knowledge that you know about this whole pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn period. But don't forget to use artificial intelligence tools that are out there these text models can be powerful in generating and pulling information together from sources in 60 seconds. You know, maybe this whole 3-step process took me 10 minutes, and now I've got a 10-hour game plan on a lake that I've never even launched my boat into before. So, great tool to use. I hope you found this helpful. Use those tips I used about those 3-part sequences, that initial prompt, taking the input and expanding it with some information, and thirdly, asking for something specific, and you can really get some great results to help support you fishing in areas that you haven't fished before, to get you started and to get you thinking about the right things on that body of water at that time of the year. Hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on the water.